Before wisdom came, before enlightenment, before the greatest spiritual teaching in history, there was confusion. There was fear. There was a warrior who forgot who he was. This is not just the story of a battlefield. This is the story of every human being, standing in the middle of life, confused between emotion and duty. This is the story of Arjuna, the greatest archer, the strongest warrior, the hero of kings. Yet on the most important day of his life, he collapsed. Why? Because sometimes, the biggest battles are not fought outside, they are fought within. Welcome to Chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's despair. The land of Kurukshetra War trembled. Thousands of warriors stood ready. Conches roared like thunder. Elephants shook the earth. Horses breathed fire into the morning air. Kings from all directions had gathered. This was not an ordinary war. This was Dharma Yuddha, a war between righteousness and greed, between justice and injustice. On one side stood the Pandavas. On the other stood the Kauravas. Brothers against brothers. Family against family. And in the center of this storm stood one man. Arjuna. His bow, Gandiva, was feared by all. No warrior dared challenge him. Victory seemed certain. But destiny had another plan. Duryodhana looked across the battlefield. He saw the Pandava army. Strong, disciplined, fearless. His confidence began to shake. He rushed to his teacher, Dronacharya, and with hidden fear, he said, "Look, master, see how powerful their army is." He named the great warriors. Bhima, Satyaki, Virata, Drupada, heroes prepared for destruction. Duryodhana spoke proudly, but inside, he was afraid. Because evil often speaks loudly, when fear lives silently inside. Then came the sound that shook the three worlds. The conch of Lord Krishna, Panchajanya, and the conch of Arjuna, Devadatta. Their sound was not ordinary. It was the sound of truth arriving. Krishna stood as Arjuna's charioteer. Think about that. The Supreme Lord himself, holding the reins for his devotee. Not as a king, not as a ruler, but as a guide. Because God does not always remove your battle, sometimes, he drives your chariot through it. Arjuna lifted his bow and said, "O Krishna, take my chariot between both armies. Let me see who I must fight today." Krishna silently obeyed. The chariot moved forward, slowly, deep into the center of destiny. And there, Arjuna saw them. Not enemies, not opponents, but grandfather Bhishma, teacher Drona, brothers, uncles, friends, cousins, loved ones, the people who raised him, the people he respected, the people he loved, standing there, ready to die, and ready to kill. Something broke inside Arjuna. His hands trembled, his skin burned, his mouth went dry, his mighty bow slipped from his hand. His body shook, his mind collapsed. This was not fear of death. This was pain of attachment. He said, "O Krishna, I do not want this victory. What is the use of a kingdom, if those for whom we desire it, stand here ready to die?" This is where most humans break. Not because life is hard, but because the heart is attached. We can fight strangers, but fighting our own emotions, that is the real war. Arjuna continued, "How can I kill my own family? Even if they are blinded by greed, should I become the destroyer of my own blood?" He spoke of family destruction, tradition collapse, moral downfall, society breaking apart, women suffering, generations being ruined. He saw consequences beyond war. He was not weak, he was human. Sometimes people think spirituality means never feeling pain. No, true spirituality begins when pain forces you to seek truth. Arjuna's tears were the beginning of wisdom. At last, Arjuna sat down, defeated, not by arrows, but by his own mind. He placed his bow aside. The mighty warrior, who defeated gods and demons, could not defeat his own confusion. And he said nothing more. Silence. On the battlefield. In that silence, the world changed. Because when ego falls silent, wisdom begins to speak. Chapter 1 ends here. Not with victory, not with war, but with surrender. And sometimes, your breakdown is the beginning of your breakthrough. Every person has a Kurukshetra. Every heart has an Arjuna. Every life reaches a moment where strength feels useless, where emotions overpower logic, where duty feels heavier than mountains. And in that moment, you need Krishna. Not outside, inside, the voice of truth, the voice of courage, The voice of Dharma. Chapter 1 teaches us something powerful. It is okay to break down. It is okay to feel lost. Because confusion is often the first step toward enlightenment. Arjuna's weakness became the doorway to divine wisdom. And maybe, your struggle today is preparing you for your own Gita tomorrow. Because the greatest teachings of life begin when pride ends. And surrender begins. This is only Chapter 1. The real transformation starts next. Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga. Where Krishna begins to speak, and the universe listens.